postscript to our discussions last 3 days, touching upon some conceptions and misconceptions about spiritual life. The first is that in most of the older traditions, spiritual, religious, and based upon them social, the woman was always relegated to the second place. There have been certain rituals, activities which are barred to women, and whether they said it explicitly or not, it was understood that man was superior, and after all, Eve came out of the ribs of man. And somehow women came to accept that situation. But things came to a head by pressure of the evolving spirit in the present century. It was at the beginning of the century that my teacher, the mother, said, "This century will see the liberation of women." She worked for it, even as in the eastern countries, Dr. Annie Besant exerted herself to get a certain status of equality to women. One day, a schoolgirl asked the mother in the full assembly, where were about 1,000 people, "Is it true that we women are inferior?" Mother replied to her that I have also asked that question to myself, because everywhere, including the Jewish customs in this part of the world, the woman is always obliged to occupy a subordinate position. And perhaps many of you don't know that in France, the wife needs the husband's signature to dispose of her own property. That is France, which is supposed to be the most advanced country in Europe. Well, so mother said, one day I decided to find out the truth of the matter. And she said, in her trance, she went up and up and up till she reached the very origins of creation, to see whether what was the basis for this distinction between man and woman, male and female. And she says that there she found none. The truth was one, the reality was one. There was no distinction. And she describes how it is only as the spirit devolves lower and lower, as it comes nearer the physical levels, there is this distinction in bodies which nature has created for her own purposes. Physical nature has created her own purposes. When they speak of God and Goddess in some of the scriptures of the East or elsewhere. Sri Aurobindo explains that the male denotes a presiding consciousness and the female denotes the executive, the methodizing consciousness. It is one consciousness, but it has two different poises. The first is called the presiding, the father element, and what executes, what organizes, it is the mother element. But both are the same. The very old tantric thought starts with this conception that the reality, the absolute reality, is one. It is indefinable, it is ineffable, it is indescribable. But when it decides to manifest what is in it, the glory that is in itself, to be organized and manifested in the form of a universe, the moment it thinks it is to be done, it poises itself in two statuses, as Shiva, as Shakti. Shiva is the presiding and the sanctioning consciousness. Shakti is the organizing and the executive consciousness. So what is Shiva and Shakti? In knowledge on the higher planes becomes, as we descend downwards, as Purusha and Prakriti. In ignorance we call it Prakriti, nature and the soul. But both are the same. The sex differentiation in the bodies comes at the lower levels for purposes of perpetuation of the species. And mother is one with the occultists, who envisage that as evolution advances, this distinction between male and female will disappear. The very process of creation will cease to be sexual. Then how is it going to be? That is another matter. We don't need to go into those occult domains. But the process of materialization, what is not here, is first organized in the subtle physical plane and then precipitated here on earth. What we call materialization, that gives a clue to what nature still has up her sleeve as to the process of creation. So the present spiritual teachings, the modern spiritual teaching insisting on an integral grasp of life, does not accept the inferiority of the female or the supposed superiority of the male. The soul has no sex. It is not true either that there is a female soul and a male soul. The soul is sexless. It is nature that has got this. In fact, the truth of the matter is each person has a male element and a female element. Each person has a Shiva and a Shakti. And to harmonize the two, equalize the two, is one of the consequences of a rounded, integrated consciousness. So each one of us has his own Shakti, has her own Purusha. We don't need to go out to find our Shaktis or Purushas. This is self-delusion. I remember it was during the hippie days, when there was an invasion in India of hordes of people, So two people came to my house. I was attending to allotment of accommodation at that time to visitors. So two people came with those knapsacks. Is it called knapsack? That bag, and half clothes and things like that. I took down the names. I said yes. And then I said, who is she? Then he said, she is my Shakti. It was hard for me to suppress my laughter, but I couldn't offend a visitor, a guest. There is another matter. In our ashram, where we have a free mixing, boys, girls, men, women, we all stay together as members of one family. But we do not have sex. Sex is not permitted among members of the ashram who stay in the ashram. So, when in the early days the question was raised before Sri Aurobindo, how are we to approach each other? When I approach a woman, I am conscious that she is a woman. Can I talk to a woman or not? In certain Buddhist and other societies, they are not allowed to talk. In some of the traditions, they can't even look at a woman. No. So Sri Aurobindo wrote back that why are you need to be conscious that you are a man and she is a woman? Why can't you look upon yourselves as seekers of God, treading the same path, having the same goal? Why do you need to think of man and woman? And it was Mother's firm conviction that it is not by segregation, by keeping them apart, but by letting them mix, freely live together, that the sex consciousness can go. And after 40 to 50 years of experience and experiment, we have found that that's the only way. We have among 700 young students, at least about 300 to 400 girls and about 300 boys, and they mix freely. Nobody questions them, gives entire freedom. But we have found that they respect, by and large, the spirit of the place, and if there have been failures, they have been very peripheral, and we help them to get married and adjusted, but they leave the ashram. They have to leave the ashram. This is not to say that sex is unspiritual, but in certain collectivities, in certain movements, it is distracting, and that is why it is not allowed. While sex is not permitted in ashram, well, it is allowed in Aurobindo, which is on a larger canvas. The second question that I had to touch is of education of children. I was particularly asked to make some remarks on it by a friend who has a child. The whole philosophy and approach to education is undergoing a big change, not only in America, but all over the world. Wherever I have been, I have seen there is an unrest, there is a breakdown, because the educational approach and standards and institutions and processes that were devised 100 years ago, 150 years ago, they are hopelessly out of date. And it is time we realize and recognize that a child spends more time at home than at school. In the school, the child spends hardly 3 to 4 hours, but the remaining 16 hours or so is spent at home. And it is at home near the parents that the real character of the child is formed, not in the school. If that entails a big responsibility on the parents, leading mother to say that it is the parents who need to be educated and not the children, because they set an example. If the teacher tells a child in the school, tell the truth, you should not speak falsehood, and when the child comes home, the child finds the father telling, tell that person I am not at home. This happens. Visitors come and they say, tell him that I am not at home. The child wonders, who is right, the teacher or my father? And Sri Aurobindo says, the child is a merciless observer. Nothing escapes children. So it's the parents have to establish certain norms, how they should behave, at least till the children grow up. The children imbibe everything from their immediate environment. So the atmosphere of purity, the atmosphere of discipline in a home is more important than in the school. The school is secondary. Somehow it is a curse of modern civilization that we think by thrusting the children to the school our responsibility is over. Well, how? If the parents who have brought the child into being disown their responsibility, why should a teacher who is paid think it is his responsibility? In one university where I was lecturing, the dean openly told me, all these are old world ideas. We educationists are not here to form the character of children. We will give whatever instruction is to be given in subjects according to the curriculum, but to form the character is not our business. That's the trend. And second is things shall not be imposed on children. Things have to be induced in children. Today nobody punishes children, but nobody punishes, in a manual way. But the attitudes, the psychological snubbings, the impatience and the irritations that we elders show when children get inquisitive, that builds or mars the personality of the child. A child must be taken seriously and treated as an adult. Particularly modern children, I have found, resent being petted as children. They want to be treated as adults. They have a consciousness which is different from the children of 50 years ago. And it is always wise to anticipate the needs of the children. It is also a truth that when they are small children, their senses are more awake. We speak of 5 senses, but children, till say they become past the age of 4 or 3, they have more senses awake, and they see things which we do not see. This earth is swarming with little entities, with other creatures from other worlds, benevolent and malevolent, pleasant and unpleasant. And little children, they see these things which we do not see. And when they cry, it is because that's the only language. They are afraid. They can't express themselves. They cry. And we either snub them or threaten them. And that creates a lot of suffering to the children. A larger consciousness, understanding the children's needs, and fear as a deterrent should be ruled out. Children should never be allowed to be afraid. Fear should never be allowed to enter into their lives. And their sense of curiosity must never be curbed. It may be inconvenient for us, but we have no business to bring children into existence unless we can take care of them and be responsible for them. And till the age of 10 or 12, it is the physical part of their education that has to be attended to more than the mental education. Their body, the functioning of their limbs, their gait, their rhythm, their sense of beauty. This has to be inculcated and developed, the physical part of the education. It is only after they reach the age of 13 or 14 that the mental education, the development of the mind has to be attended to. Till then, it shouldn't really matter whether they study books or not. What is important is that they grow in freedom. They are allowed to do what they want, and whatever supervision is there, it should be an unseen supervision. They should not feel that they are being supervised or watched. They should be helped, and they should always have the faith that when help is needed, it is available. A teacher must always be at hand. In our pre-progress system, the children are left in the building to choose their games, to choose their books, but there is always somebody at hand to answer the children when they want, but he will not impose. And there is a room of silence. In every school, there has to be a room of silence, where children should be encouraged to go when they have problems, when they have difficulties, to go there and sit. And if children make a habit of using that room of silence, there is some presence there created which answers to the situation. This room of silence, I am told, it is being now provided for even in big firms. I don't know whether in America they do, but in Europe they do, I am told. It's a room of silence, where no worship is there of anybody, but it is just kept silent, physically silent, and a powerful atmosphere is created. The teacher must be a friend of the student and not an instructor. The child must feel free to approach the teacher. This is the second point, and I think I should invite questions now, if I have left some points untouched.
Can we go back to the male-female?
Yes.
We can come back to education. I'd like to have some questions. I remember reading Mother a question and answer session where she digressed. She was talking about the Purusha, and she said, I don't know how they ever got the idea that the Purusha was male. She said some old Indian men put this idea out. She was making a joke. I
know. Well, you know, Jehovah, why is he male?
Yeah, okay. So the point is that
it's not a sin of an Indian.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so
we should recognize that this is a man-made civilization. Man has laid down the law, man has erected God in his own image, and that's the truth of it.
So the idea is that the Purusha and the Shakti, it's calling them male and female is just a convention.
Convention.
Okay, but now, and also then, it has nothing to do with being a man or a female. A male is not any more.
No. A man may be very feminine.
Yeah, but see, there you're saying feminine.
A man may be very feminine, and some women are very masculine.
But that's still separate. What I mean is that a man doesn't necessarily reflect more of the Purusha than the Shakti.
No. A dynamic man, like Napoleon, for instance, he is more of a Shakti than a Purusha.
Okay. Then the final question is, how does all this tie in to this special, unique incarnation of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother?
I think we had better leave that question at the moment.
You spoke of the parents.
Yes.
There's a very famous school that Carol knows of, A.S. Neal in England. And Neal was sent a boy, a 14, who was, the letters came from his parents that he lied and he stole. And they sent him up by train, but they bought a ticket for him for a child of 12. And they cheated on his railroad ticket.
I see.
The parents cheated on him.
Oh my God.
They were talking about the home.
Yes.
And they said he steals and he lies. And they
cheat to get his ticket.
I see. Yes. Yes.
To go back to what Tom was talking about, is there not still a complementary function between friends or mates, male, female, on a psychological level?
Yeah, it is. It is. But it does not mean one is superior and one is inferior. But they are equal and they complement, because it is a fact that as a rule men are more mental and women are more emotional. Well, men are more analytical, women are more intuitive. You understand? And there are certain advantages on the side of a woman in spiritual life, because they can open themselves, they can identify themselves more easily, because they have brought up children, and they can't do that successfully unless they totally identify themselves with the child. So they are capable of that, but man is essentially selfish. A woman can be selfless, and a woman has an intuitive perception of things. She doesn't need to think. She has an intuitive perception, this is that, this is that. It is very difficult to cheat women, easy to fool men, So it is a successful pair always complement each other. In the present organization of things, a woman and a man are intended to complement each other when they are together. Yeah.
Excuse me, is it then fair to say that the potential though for the mental on the side of the woman and for the feeling side on the man or the red brain or whatever is there, and in the process now of development?
It has to be developed. Every woman has that potentiality, but she is more developed here than here. But she can take steps to redress the balance and develop herself. And there have been many wonderful women writers and scientists, and spiritual leaders who have a very powerful intellect, but they took care to develop it.
Well, Pandit, I've seen some. It seems to me that unless we're grounded on our side of the pyramid, so to speak, whether it's male or female, if we're not grounded in that first before we take on the other side, that's disastrous.
If you mean, she's saying unless you become fully in the balance before you try to develop the masculine side of your woman, you should become fully grounded as a woman.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't need to become fully a woman.
No. You have to develop all the sides.
Just whatever you.
Yes. You are given. I think one has to develop integrally. The integral development is that. A total development,
You mentioned the use of for children of a room where there's silence.
Yes.
Would you say something about the cultivation of silence in a household, not necessarily physical, but of a ground of peace or silence, and how that can be cultivated?
normally we talk much more than necessary. A good deal of speech energy is being wasted, and speaking from the spiritual point of view, the source of sex energy and speech energy is the same. We always speak of conservation of sex energy, waste of sex energy, but nobody bothers about speech energy. And it is an important part of spiritual life to learn to speak less and less, to speak just what is required, and conserve, so that there is no waste of potential. And from that point of view, in every home, if we can economize this, wastage of speech, use of speech energy, that itself builds an atmosphere of calm and serenity. If we talk, what they call in French bavardage, mother used to call it bavardage, that is gossip, needless talk, it exhausts us and it lowers our consciousness. It lowers our consciousness when we go on talking uselessly. If we are serious about life's purposes, speech has to be conserved. And from that point of view, a room of silence is a good training for children to realize that silence is helpful. If they are silent, they get the solutions of their difficulties or problems.
Mother, could you speak about how the attitude one ought to have with a child that has lied or stolen something, and also towards, say, companions that a child has that you see as influencing your child for the worse, a child that steals or lies or whatnot, or other outside influences?
This is a very searching question and a practical question. Whether it is a child or an adult, when the person does something wrong, one should never correct at that moment. One should never point out at that moment, because immediately there is the mechanism of self-justification, self-defense, or lying. I have not done it. Or if you can't avoid that, well, the blame will be put on somebody else. But you have to wait for an opportune psychological moment to point out that this is not worthy of you. This should be done differently. At that time they accept it. And a child is to be corrected in private, never scolded in public, and treated as a gentleman, gentleman or a lady, and corrected without hurting. Then they accept. In cases where an inveterately bad boy, say, he influences other children and all that, all kinds of strategies are tried. Persuasion, then showing the example of others, bringing the element of shaming the child. But still, if they don't, then you have to separate the child, because at that age these things pass very easily. One has to try one's best. If otherwise, either one has to warn the other children or separate the child. That is what we have done. Once it happened in our Center of Education that the registrar brought a list of 3 children to the mother and said these 3 children had better be expelled. So mother was always on the side of children. So she said, why? He said they don't attend the class, they don't study, they don't allow other students to study, and they spoil the whole atmosphere. She took the list. One was an American boy, one was a French boy, and one was an Indian. 3. Then she said, no. If it is the fault of teachers, if they have not been able to interest the children in the studies, it is the failure of the teachers. Then she became grave and she said, at this juncture in human evolution, lot of souls with a developed consciousness are taking birth. The consciousness of many children born today is more advanced than at any time before for their age. And with that advanced consciousness, they just can't fit in with our old ways. They have problems, and you just try to escape the problem by saying they are problem children. You have not exerted yourself, you have not applied yourself and studied what is the difficulty and why they feel it. The problem is of adjustment. They can't adjust in the old society, in the old ways. So before calling children as problem children, we have to pay a deeper attention and see whether we are the problem or they are the problem. Usually the parents are the problem. They create psychological knots which pursue them even after 20 years and 30 years. When you recall, you will trace that it's a particular thing, difficulty started at that time. Yes.
I found that a child will almost spontaneously, unconsciously pick up the deceptions of the parents and reflect them back to you.
Yeah. Right.
And you'll say, look at the child doing that. But if you're honest, you'll find it in yourself immediately. And without even knowing that the child even noticing it, the child will find it and reflect it back to you.
Children are very good imitators.
At all levels.
Yes.
What does, if the consciousness of the child is so changed now than 50 years ago, would you comment on the conceiving earlier appearance of sexual curiosity, perhaps, or the sex energy in children, and how it can possibly be handled by parents?
I think it is not only the enhancement of sex energy, it is really the enhancement of energy. The higher the consciousness, the more the energies at every level, on the sex level, on the curiosity level, on the emotional level, on the ego level also, which are very egoistic. Children today are very egoistic because it is a means of expression for them. So it is a consequence of a more concentrated consciousness, that there is more curiosity, more outgoing, and they know much more for their age than we did at their age.
I think there's 2 points to remember with that question, Bob. One is that the movement of children, the movement of the sexual age back to 18 and 20 I think is fairly recent. When you go back into primitive, medieval, and back even farther into primitive cultures, you find the sexual activity moving back into 12 again. And 2, the sexual stimulation in our culture is immense. And the children see it on TV, and they're allowed to see it in the movies, and they see it on the streets, and they see it in advertisements. It's everywhere. So, I mean, those two things combined, I don't know if the children are that much more. But significantly different in that.
Yes.
Ma, to what extent should parents involve their children in their spiritual life, such as formal meditation or going to church or listening to discourses? Is there a particular age?
No. They should not impose their beliefs and spiritual practices and things like that on the children, but they should live such a life that the children unconsciously imbibe those ideas and ideals and practices. And now they imbibe unconsciously. In our center of education, nobody speak them of religion or spirituality or yoga. Though it is our institution of yoga in the school, yoga is not taught. But if they get curious and if they want to know, they are told. But it is no part of school studies.
Madhav, there's another end to that spectrum in terms of your comment that we don't understand some of the things that children are open to, that we've closed off to. I sometimes feel at the other end we also don't understand elderly people. that there are things that they come into contact with in approaching death and approaching illness and aging that being in the middle of life and healthy exposed to their blinders. And I know there are many older people in the ashram. I wonder if you could comment on that, on a proper attitude, proper relationship to older people.
Yes, I think the older people's problem is more urgent and acute in the West than in the Eastern countries. Because there, the older people have a very honored place and they are respected, and always, even the grandchildren, we still have a system of joint families, children caring for their parents, parents bringing up the children, and the children owning their responsibility for the parents. This system of old age homes or something, it is totally unknown in our countries. Some Christian missionaries have started doing that now, but they have not been successes, Yes, in the name of Jesus Christ, they are doing it. But they have not succeeded. And in our ashram particularly, the older the people, it is understood they have got certain physical infirmities. And there is a special effort at understanding them, helping them. And in that atmosphere, the older one gets, the less the attachments are. Attachments fall away. And they live in an inner solitude, not an external solitude, but an inner solitude. But here, external solitude also is forced upon them, and that is very cruel.
It seems also that there is an emphasis here on remaining young, which is disrespectful to the aging process, that many old people feel a pressure from the culture to act younger than they really are.
Yes.
Or to pretend.
I think that is the system now, The system has to be corrected. The whole system is wrong.
How about the act of dying there in the ashram? Is it an easy passage?
It really depends, as outside, so there. The type of life you have led, whether you have prepared yourself for death, whether you have prepared yourself for old age, that decides the type of death. If we have released ourselves from involvements, mental, emotional, if we have forged a link with the divine when we are alive, established peace, serenity, equanimity, then they take death with a smile. But those who are still attached may not be to their families, because they have no families there, attached to little things, greed, food, clothes, all these things, they don't want to go. They die a painful death. It all depends upon how you live. How you die depends upon how you live.
Didn't Sri Aurobindo say somewhere that everything in life is a deformation of a truth in some sense? Everything you see reflects some kind of a truth, even though it might be deformed.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes.
I was thinking that maybe this American fascination with youth could be the true aspiration to eliminate the process of aging.
Could be. Could be.
Isn't that, I mean, that's part of what
Could
yoga
be.
is about.
Eternal youth, you know. It is a dream of man, eternal youth. And it could be.
It's just the deformation.
Yeah, it
in
could
a
be.
gross way.
Yes.
The vibrant energy of a child or children together can often seem disruptive to a orderly function of a household or a community. And I can see how in the long run self-discipline can be encouraged in children, but I'm wondering how to deal with an immediate problem without stifling or without imposing a discipline.
Example is always better than precept. If the elders, the parents, these live a life of discipline, the children normally follow in the same groove. So discipline can't be imposed. Children must feel that that's right, that should be done. And when they see the parents and everybody following a discipline, they automatically follow it. We have seen when the parents get up early in the morning, 6 o'clock, have their wash, pray and all, the children also follow the same thing. They may understand or not understand why, but they will follow. If the parents, they get up late whenever they like and all, the children also follow. They have to be forced to get up to go to the school. Not otherwise. The key is in the hands of the parents.
So is there a more subtle level of redemption of the old saying that where one person is redeemed, their family also is redeemed?
What is it?
Is there the old saying that it's not important?
No, it's an old ancient saying.
Well, the old saying that when one person is redeemed, that the rest of the family does.
No.
They used to say that in India, didn't they?
No.
Realized
It is the same thing as one Savior has redeemed the whole mankind. No, it is not true. Everybody has to work out his own destiny.
There's no chain reaction on some level.
No. Well, an indirect action, yes, if there is one wise man in a family, everybody benefits by that wisdom, that's all. That doesn't make others wise.
But they benefit.
You see.
Swami Muktananda used to say a siddha liberates 40 generations.
No, it's all exaggerations, Didactic wisdom. And no, it's not true.
Dialectic, is that what you said?
Didactic,
Oh.
that to make people, teach morals and that sort of thing. You exaggerate things. That's not.
Yes, the Christian tradition has that too. If they could find one just man in the town, well, then they'd save the town. I don't think they found any.
Exactly. Similarly, there is always a Jewish faith, Mother used to quote, that if 12 honest men meet together and pray to God to manifest, God is bound to manifest. Then she said it is such a commentary that 12 honest men have never met. I think these are ways of speaking, ways of speaking. That the value of honesty, the value of sincerity, the value of justice. I think now I will call upon Vasanti. Just as she began with an invocation, she could conclude our session with a prayer. And after that we will have meditation for 5 minutes.
I, Rabindranath Tagore. Touch my life with thy touchstone of fire and make my life sacred. This body of mine is thy temple. Give it thy support and light thy lamp in it. And let the flame of thy light burn in my song night and day. Touch the body of darkness so that the night may burst with ever new stars. Let the veil be drawn from my eyes, and wherever my gaze falls, let it see only light. and let all my grief and pain burn in that fire and rise like the incense. Touch my life with thy touchstone of fire and make my life blessed.
আগুনের পরশ মনে ছোঁয়া প্রাণে এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো, এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো, এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো, এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো দহন দানে, এই আগুনে পরশ মনে ছোঁয়া প্রাণে আমার এই দেহ খানি তুলে ধরো, তোমার ওই দেবালয়ে প্রদীপ করো, আমার এই দেহ খানি তুলে ধরো, তোমার এই দেবালয়ে প্রদীপ করো। নিশিদিন আলোক শিখা জ্বলুক গানে, নিশিদিন আলোক শিখা জ্বলুক গানে, এই আগুনের পরশ মনে ছোঁয়া প্রাণে, এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো, এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো, এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো, এ জীবন পূর্ণ করো দহন দানে, এই আগুনে পরশ মনে ছোঁয়া প্রাণে, আধারের গায়ে গায়ে পরশ তব, সারা রাত ফোটা তারা নব নব, নয়নের দৃষ্টি হতে ঘুটবে কালো, যেখানে পড়বে সেথায় দেখবে আলো, নয়নের দৃষ্টি হতে ঘুটবে কালো, যেখানে পড়বে সেথায় দেখবে আলো, ব্যথা মোর উঠবে জলে ঊর্ধ্বপানে, ব্যথা মোর উঠবে জলে ঊর্ধ্বপানে, এই আগুনের পরশ মনে ছোঁয়া প্রাণে, এ জীবন karo, jivan purna karo, dahandane, aguner parashmani, chuvao prane. I conclude with a prayer from the Upanishads. Lead me from the unreal to the real. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. 3 times peace. Peace to the mind, peace to the emotions, and peace to the body.